I've always believed love should be simple. Easy. Predictable. The kind of thing you walk toward without fear. But nothing about Ariba has ever been simple. I met her on the first day of my new job at a design firm in Lahore. She walked into the office like she owned the air itself, sharp blazer, sharp eyeliner, sharp everything. She had this effortless confidence that made everyone turn their heads, including me. And I hated that. I don't fall for girls. At least, that's what I've always told myself. But then she looked at me, really looked at me, as if she already knew something about me I hadn't admitted to myself. She smiled like she was letting me in on a secret, and I felt my stomach drop. From that moment, she made it her mission to get under my skin. A lingering glance here. A teasing comment there. A habit of leaning too close when explaining something on my screen. She smelled like vanilla and danger. Whenever our eyes met, something electric rushed through me, so suddenly and intensely that I had to look away. She noticed that, too. One afternoon, as we stayed late working on a proposal, she leaned back in her chair, arms folded, and said with a smirk, "You know, I'm waiting." "For what?" I asked, pretending to focus on the screen. "For you to confess." My heart jumped. "Confess what?" She shrugged casually, though her eyes sparkled with challenge. "Anything you want to confess." She knew exactly what she was doing. I told myself she was only teasing. But deep down, too deep, I hoped, something stirred. Something dangerous. Something I wasn't ready to face. Because falling for her meant admitting something I wasn't prepared for. So I tried to ignore it, ignore her, ignore the way her voice warmed my spine or how her laughter stayed in my head long after work. But the more I tried not to fall, the harder I fell. And she knew it. She was waiting for my confession. But I wasn't even ready to confess to myself. Avoiding someone like Ariba is impossible. She has this uncanny ability to sense hesitation like a scent in the air. If I took a slightly different route to the cafeteria, she appeared there. If I sat in a meeting trying to fade into the background, she pulled a chair right beside me, close enough that her perfume wrapped around me like a trap. If I answered her messages late, she'd send more, short, sharp, annoyingly confident. "You're avoiding me. Come out of your cave. Rooftop. Now." The rooftop became our unofficial confession chamber, even though I never confessed anything. One Tuesday afternoon, the sky looked bruised, heavy with clouds, Lahore's usual humidity replaced with a restless wind. I stood by the old railing, pretending to admire the skyline. She arrived minutes later, holding 2 steaming coffee cups as if we had planned this meeting. "You didn't have to come," I muttered. "I know," she said with a shrug. "But I wanted to." Then she handed me a cup even though I hadn't asked. She always did this, acted like we were something. Something real. Something dangerous. Something I was too afraid to define. "So," she said lightly, leaning against the railing, "what excuse do you have today?" "Excuse?" "For avoiding me." I rolled my eyes. "I'm not avoiding you." She chuckled, low and knowing. "You avoid me the way someone avoids fire, carefully, slowly, while staring at it the whole time." Her words hit harder than they should have. "You think too much," I said. "And you pretend too much," she replied. There it was again, that infuriating confidence. She spoke as if she had already figured out the secrets I hadn't even admitted to myself. "Ariba," I said, exasperated, "not everything is a game." "But this is," she said softly, turning toward me. "A game where I already know the ending." "And what ending is that?" "That you'll confess first." I almost dropped my coffee. "Why would you think that?" "Because you're trying so hard not to," she said, eyes gleaming with mischief and something deeper, curiosity, maybe. Desire, maybe. And people only fight that hard when they're already halfway gone. My heartbeat stumbled. I opened my mouth to argue, to deflect, to say something that sounded like control, but she stepped closer, stealing the words from my throat. The space between us shrank until the wind couldn't slip through. You feel something, she said quietly. Every time I come close, every time I tease you, every time I look at you for 1 second too long. Ariba. I'm not asking you to admit it, she whispered. I'm just telling you that I see it. She wasn't joking. She wasn't teasing. Her voice carried a sincerity I wasn't ready for. Then she smiled, the kind that cuts through excuses. So here's the deal, she added with a smirk. I'll wait. I want you to say it first. It was a Thursday, the kind of Thursday that already felt heavy before the storm began. The morning had been humid, the sky painfully bright, but by late afternoon, dark clouds rolled in like an omen. The office grew quieter as people hurried to leave. One by one, lights went off, chairs emptied, doors closed. By 7 p.m., only 2 people remained on our floor. Me. And Ariba. The thunder outside cracked like bones breaking. Rain slammed against the windows, blurring the city into smudges of color and light. The power flickered once, twice, then settled into a dim, unreliable glow. Ariba stretched back in her chair, watching me with that unreadable expression she saved only for me. You know what your problem is? She asked casually. I didn't look up from my laptop. I'm sure you'll tell me. You hate how much you like me. My fingers froze on the keyboard. I don't. Yes, you do, she said, not unkindly. And it scares you. I stood up, half irritated, half flustered. You always jump to conclusions. I don't jump, she said, rising from her chair, I observe. Rising from her chair, I observe. She walked toward me with slow, deliberate steps. The kind that demanded attention. The kind I felt in my chest before she even reached me. The emergency lights cast her face in soft shadows, highlighting her cheekbones, her steady eyes, the small curl of her lips. She looked both gentle and dangerous, like a truth I wasn't ready to face. Ariba, I said, stepping back instinctively. She stopped in front of me, close but not touching. Tell me I'm wrong, she whispered. I'll believe you. My lips parted. Nothing came out. Her gaze softened, losing all teasing. See, she breathed. You can't. I'm confused, I said quietly. This is all too much. She shook her head. No. It's simple. You feel something. I feel something. You're just the only one pretending it isn't there. Thunder shook the windows. The lights blinked violently, and then went out completely. Only the weak emergency strips glowed along the floor, painting the room in pale blue. My heart hammered. She took one step closer. I felt her breath on my face, warm despite the cold storm. I'm not asking you to love me, she said, voice barely above a whisper. I'm not even asking you to admit anything. Then what do you want? I whispered. She lifted her hand slowly, as if giving me time to pull away, and touched my chin with 2 fingers. A light, gentle touch, but enough to send heat rushing through my entire body. I want you, she said, to stop pretending. Her thumb brushed the corner of my jaw. My breath hitched. For a moment, neither of us moved. The storm screamed outside, the world shrank inside the office. Then she leaned in, not close enough to kiss, but close enough to destroy every last bit of denial I had left. You don't have to confess, she murmured. Not now. Not ever. I just need you to stop running. I looked into her eyes, and for the first time, I didn't lie. I didn't run. And that single, trembling moment changed everything. The morning after that storm felt like waking from a dream I shouldn't have had, too vivid, too close, too tempting. Reality returned with harsh clarity, and panic settled deep in my chest. I told myself the night before meant nothing, that she had gotten too close and I had simply frozen, that I could still pull myself back before everything became complicated. So I did what I always did when faced with feelings I didn't want to name, I ran. Not literally, but in every other possible way. I blocked her number with trembling hands, ignoring the guilt that hit immediately after. I switched my desk with a colleague under the excuse of better lighting. I avoided the cafeteria, took lunch breaks in my car, pretended to be deeply occupied whenever she walked past. I even scheduled fake calls just so I wouldn't have to be alone with her in the hallway. But the thing about creating distance from someone like Ariba is that the distance itself becomes an invitation. By the second day, her looks had changed from amused to confused, and by the third, confusion had sharpened into frustration. That afternoon, when I thought I had successfully avoided her, she appeared in my cabin, closed the door behind her with a firmness that sent a jolt through me, and stood there, silent, angry, hurt. "You're running again," she finally said, her voice cutting through the air. I didn't meet her eyes as I muttered, "I'm thinking." She stepped closer. "No. You're hiding." I clenched my fists. "Same thing." "Not to me," she said softly but firmly. "Thinking means confronting something. You're pretending none of it happened." I wanted to argue, wanted to deny everything, but the look in her eyes made my throat close. She exhaled slowly, as if steadying herself. "Tell me what scares you," she said, her tone gentler. I swallowed hard, trying to form a coherent lie, but the truth slipped out before I could stop it. You scare me." Her expression faltered for a moment, surprise flickering across her face before turning into something softer, understanding, maybe even pain. She took another step forward, careful, as though afraid I'd bolt. "You think liking a girl means you're breaking something inside yourself," she murmured. I looked away, my voice barely audible. "Maybe I am." She shook her head as if she could see right through the walls I had built. "You don't have to confess anything. Not now. Not ever. I'm not trying to force you into a label or a choice or a declaration." She paused, her voice now barely above a whisper. "I just want you to stop punishing yourself for something that feels real." Her words hit me harder than anything she'd ever said. I felt something fragile inside me shift, guilt, fear, longing all tangled together. I wanted to walk away. I wanted to stay. I wanted everything and nothing at the same time. She looked at me with a painful softness and said, "You don't want to fall in love. I get it." Then, more quietly, almost as if she were admitting something of her own, "But you already have." And for the first time, I didn't deny it, not to her, not to myself. That night, sleep refused to come, leaving me tangled in thoughts I had been avoiding for weeks. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the way Ariba had looked at me, steady, patient, almost unbearably gentle. Her words echoed in the quiet of my room, "You already have." I tried to tell myself she was wrong, that I was just overwhelmed, confused, reacting to attention I wasn't used to. But none of those excuses felt true anymore. By morning, the fear hadn't faded, it had only taken a new shape, an ache, a pull, a certainty I could no longer pretend away. Something inside me whispered that hiding wasn't protecting me, it was hurting me. So instead of heading to my desk, I went straight to the rooftop, the place where every unspoken truth between us seemed to sit like a shadow. She was already there, leaning against the railing, staring at the city as if she had expected me. Without turning, she said, "So, you decided to run again?" Her voice held disappointment, but also something deeper, resignation. "No," I said softly, my throat tight. "I came to say something." She finally looked at me, guarded but hopeful. My chest tightened. Words felt too small for the hurricane inside me, but I pushed them out anyway. "I like you," I said, my voice trembling. "I've liked you for longer than I want to admit. And yes, it terrifies me." Her breath hitched, barely audible, but I felt it like a spark. "You don't owe me a confession," she whispered. "I know," I replied. "But I needed to give it." She stepped forward slowly, her hands rising to my face, fingers trembling as if she couldn't believe the moment was real. "You have no idea," she said, her eyes shining, "how long I've waited to hear that." And when she kissed me, soft, slow, warm, it felt like finally taking a breath after drowning. Dating Ariba did not turn my life into some perfect, polished fairy tale. Instead, it became something real, messy, beautiful, frustrating, and breathtaking all at once. She still teased me for taking too long to admit my feelings, and I still pretended not to smile every time she did. She'd take my hand in the office hallway without warning, and even though it sent my heart into a panic, I never pulled away. I found myself watching her more, how she tucked her hair behind her ear when she concentrated, how she laughed with her whole face when something genuinely amused her, how she softened in moments she thought no one noticed. Some evenings, we would stand on the rooftop again, the same place where we danced around the truth for so long. She'd lean against the railing, her shoulder brushing mine, and whisper, "I wanted you to confess first," with that mischievous smile that always made me blush. And I would laugh, quietly, because now it didn't scare me to admit, I didn't want to fall in love with a girl. But love has a way of making its own decisions. And sometimes the heart is far more honest than the mind wants it to be. With her, everything felt right. Not easy, not perfect, but deeply right, like something I had been resisting without even understanding why. She held my fears without judgment and my feelings without pressure. She let me grow into the truth instead of dragging me toward it. And somewhere along the way, the fear I once carried turned into something softer: trust, comfort, belonging. So now, when she looks at me like I'm something worth waiting for, worth fighting for, I don't hide anymore. I take her hand, I hold her close, and I finally allow myself to believe it. I didn't want to fall in love with a girl, but falling for her became the best thing I ever did.